Hi, my name's Leo, back again with another video. Now for the last week I've been testing out this device here, Samsung's latest mid-range offering, the Galaxy A17. Now in this video I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on this device. We're going to be unboxing it, taking a closer look at its design, testing out the performance, the cameras and the battery life. So if you were looking to pick this device up in 2025, hopefully this video will help you out. I do apologise if you can hear the rain, it's absolutely pouring it down outside whilst trying to film this video. Anyway, I think we should start this video off by taking a look inside the box of the A17. So here is the box. It's probably slightly thicker than the one you're going to receive because this is the Indian version. I bought it on eBay and this is what they sent me. The main difference is it comes with a charging brick and the box has to accommodate it. It claims 6x OS security, which probably means the 6 years of software support. And the 50 megapixel main shooter now comes with OIS, which is nice to see. I then attempt to try and get into the phone box and do a pretty bad job of it. The tab's just ripped in half. So we're finally into the box. And as I mentioned, this is the Indian version of the phone, so it comes with a 25 watt wall plug. There's also a quick start guide and a USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. Opening up the phone, my first impressions are that this is quite a nice feeling phone. The blue matte texture on the back looks very nice. In my opinion, I prefer it to the texture of the A07, and I prefer this blue colour to the black A16 that I have. Alright, let's try booting this device up for the first time. So currently in the UK, the A17 costs around about £170, putting it in that low to mid-range price bracket. And in the hand you can tell it's entirely made out of plastic, but it doesn't feel flimsy and cheap. Now in terms of colours, there's this blue version, which I think looks the coolest, but you can also get a silver version and a black version. On the back of the device we have a triple camera setup with a flash. This is slightly different to the design of last year's A16, which had 3 separate camera bumps. I actually preferred last year's design. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Moving around to the edges of the device, which are also made from plastic, we have a SIM card slot. Now this phone supports dual SIM cards. You can either have 2 physical SIMs or 1 SIM and a micro SD card. Moving around to the other side of the device, we have a volume rocker as well as a power button that also doubles up as a fingerprint reader. And from my testing, this has been fairly fast and accurate. At the bottom of the device is a USB-C port for charging and data transfer, as well as a single bottom firing speaker. Now this speaker can get decently loud, but at higher volumes it can sound tinny and distorted. It's also very easy to accidentally cover up, and because there's only one speaker, doing this can completely mute the audio. I wanted to try for a long time, as well as my cat Fluffy. This is Kopi Luwak coffee, also known as the most expensive. And disappointingly, even though this is a plastic device, there is no wireless charging, but there is IP54 splash and dust resistance, so it should survive a rainy day like today. And because it's made out of plastic, it is quite light for its size, 192 grams. For comparison, my 16 Pro Max is about 20% heavier, but even though it's quite a light smartphone, it doesn't feel cheap. Now the display is technically identical to last year's A16, but that's not a bad thing. In my review of the A16, I did praise the display on that phone. It's good, it's an AMOLED, it gets fairly bright at 800 nits peak brightness. It's also 90 Hz, so scrolling can feel pretty smooth. All fairly decent specs, even by 2025 standards. And it obviously comes with all the benefits of having an AMOLED display. Bright, vibrant colours, good viewing angles, good motion clarity. So for the price, I really don't have any complaints with this screen, apart from the random Harry Potter wallpaper. That's so random. I mean, if I did have any gripes with the display, it'd be the fact that it's not quite as bright as some of the higher end smartphones, which makes daytime visibility average, especially with its fairly reflective screen coating. And there's no HDR video playback, which is to be expected at this price point. To be honest, I think the main thing holding this display back are the large bezels, especially the large chin and notch. It makes the front of the device look like something from 5 or 6 years ago. Take a look at this wallpaper. It's just some random geezer. On a positive note, we do get Gorilla Glass Victus, so the screen should survive an extra drop or two. It's absolutely pouring it down. But if you are enjoying, be sure to drop us a like and consider subscribing. We've just hit 12,000 subscribers. Let's get on with the review and let's get out of the rain. Moving on to the camera system of the Galaxy A17, it's pretty much the same triple camera setup as last year's 16, but with one major improvement. So the main shooter is a 50 megapixel sensor with an f1.8 aperture lens. And this year we get optical image stabilization, which is something we didn't get on last year's A16. So this is very nice to see. We also have the same 5 megapixel ultra wide and 2 megapixel macro as last year. So those are the specs, but how does the camera actually perform in the real world? On the whole, I found the camera system to perform okay. The main shooter is definitely the strongest of the lenses. In good lighting conditions, the results are most of the time pretty pleasing. The images look very Samsung with high contrast and saturation and a touch too much sharpening for my liking. And when zooming in on an image, the detail level is acceptable, especially when the camera's set to 50 megapixels. But it is crushed by any phone with a telephoto lens, which is to be expected. This doesn't have a zoom lens. Now low light is where this camera starts to play up. I went out and tried to take some photos in the evening and compared it to my iPhone, and you can see the results for yourself. This camera definitely underperforms in low light, especially compared to a higher end smartphone with a larger sensor. Moving over to the ultra wide lens. It's exactly the same sensor as last year. Sometimes nice to have, but don't expect the images to be very good. It's only 5 megapixels, so the images lack detail, and in any conditions other than direct sunlight, the images immediately start to fall apart and look very grainy. This is mainly down to the tiny image sensor. The images exhibit a lot of distortion around the edges with obvious color fringing. The final sensor on the back is a 2 megapixel fixed focus macro camera, identical to the one found on last year's A16. And it feels like the only reason they added this sensor was to say that this phone has a triple camera setup and to distinguish it from the A07, which is the phone below it. But in reality, this is a completely pointless sensor. The images look rubbish, they're soft, terrible low light. It also has a fixed focus lens, which for a macro camera is a bad idea. It means that shots are always blurry. To focus, instead of actually tapping on an object to focus on it like you should do with most cameras, you have to move the phone backwards and forwards to get focus, which is just not good. Samsung just really went and found the cheapest camera and slapped it on the back of this phone just for the sake of having 3 cameras. And this phone wouldn't have been any better or worse without it. Now, on the front of the device, we have a 13 megapixel selfie camera, and the images look good, a decent amount of detail and pretty good skin tones. Video quality is an area that the A17 has improved on when compared to last year's A16. And yes, they do have the exact same sensor, so the overall video quality is the same. They both shoot in 1080p, which is a little bit disappointing, but the main improvement comes with optical image stabilization. So when reviewing last year's A16, I thought the video quality was decent, but my main complaint was the stabilization. Handheld video looked very shaky and cheap due to the lack of any stabilization. But this year that problem is solved. We have optical image stabilization, which makes the video look much smoother. So in my opinion, when comparing the videos side by side, this is a massive improvement. It just would have been nice for Samsung to include 4K support. They also included the ability to shoot slow motion video, which looks like this. It can look a bit artifacty, but I'm just glad they included it. And it also has a portrait mode, pretty good edge detection, but it's not going to be winning any awards. Here's some examples of photos taken with portrait mode. And here are just some general photos taken with the phone. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Now moving on to the performance and specs of this phone. The version I have here has 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, but this phone can have anywhere from 4GB to 8GB of RAM and either 128GB of storage or 256, all depending on what configuration you go for. Now in terms of processor, the version I have, the 5G version, comes with the Exynos 1330, whereas the 4G version comes with the slightly older MediaTek Helios G99. These are both 8-core processors with 2 performance cores and 6 efficiency cores. From what I've seen in benchmarks, both these chips perform pretty similar, but the Exynos has a slight lead. Now in Geekbench 6, the A17 performs as expected for a budget device, scoring 976 single core and 2229 multi-core. Now focusing on the GPU, this is an area that has actually been upgraded. The A17 now comes with the Melee G68, which is an upgrade from last year's G57, which is found in the A16. Now I ran the Geekbench 6 GPU benchmark, and on the A17 I got a score of 1,321. Now surprisingly, the A16 score wasn't much lower at 1,256. I was expecting a bigger difference. Now the day-to-day performance of this phone is pretty good. Browsing the web, scrolling YouTube, listening to music, some casual gaming is all absolutely fine on this device, with only the occasional stutter and hiccup. Multitasking is also pretty good on this 6GB version. The phone's able to keep quite a lot of apps open in the background. And yes, this doesn't feel quite as fast as my iPhone, but that's to be expected. This phone's much more expensive, much faster processor. But the fact that this can even keep up is impressive. So for day-to-day casual usage, the Galaxy A17's performance is absolutely fine. But the question is, how does it perform in games? Let's find out. So the first game that I decided to test was Minecraft. So I ended up jumping into a world, and this game ran really well. Most of the time it felt like I was maxing out the 90Hz refresh rate. And this game looked colourful and ran smoothly on the 90Hz AMOLED display, and only the occasional stutter when traversing the terrain. I then jumped into Call of Duty Mobile, and this game also ran really well. It felt like I was getting around 60 frames per second. And the game felt sharp and responsive, definitely an overall good experience. Finally, I decided to test Asphalt Legends, which is a pretty popular mobile racing game. Now this game felt like it was capped at 30 frames per second, so definitely not as smooth as the other two games, but it ran okay, definitely an enjoyable experience. The Galaxy A17 comes with a 5,000 mAh battery, as well as 25-watt fast charging, which will take the phone from 0 to 100% in an hour and 20 minutes. So as well as doing YouTube, I'm also a doctor, and last week I was on night shifts, and I took this as an opportunity to test out the battery life on this phone. So typically my night shifts are 13 hours, and I decided to take this phone with me to see how long the battery would last. Now I didn't use this phone a huge amount because I also brought my iPhone, because I had all my stuff on this phone and I couldn't really be bothered to transfer it over just for one night shift. But I did end up using this phone a bit, and I ended up ending the night on around 70% battery life, which is pretty impressive. And from my testing, you should expect between 7 and 8 hours of screen on time, which is pretty good. This phone definitely should last you a whole day. So finally, I want to touch on the software experience of the Galaxy A17. So out of the box, it comes with Android 15 and One UI 7, but I was immediately prompted to update to One UI 8. Now, in my opinion, One UI is fine. I don't hate it. It's Samsung's Android skin. Back in the day, I used to hate TouchWiz, but I think since then they've definitely improved. I still do prefer the stock Android experience with the Pixel phones, but this is fine, it's not too invasive. If I had to choose one thing that frustrates me about the software experience, it's the fact that there's two of most apps. For example, there's the Google Play Store that would be my first choice, but there's also a Samsung App Store. And that's the same with the Fitness app, the Gallery app, the web browser. It's just a bit cluttered having two of every app. But this issue isn't specific to the A17, it's on all Samsung phones. But on a more positive note, Samsung do claim 6 years of software support, which is pretty good. So in conclusion, do I recommend buying a Samsung Galaxy A17 in 2025? The pros are the camera now has optical image stabilization, the gaming performance is pretty good, the screen is very good for the price, a 90Hz AMOLED, and the battery life is very acceptable. And in terms of cons, the single bottom firing speaker isn't very good. The low light performance of the camera sucks. I did notice occasional stutter when using the phone. And in my opinion, the biggest con is the fact that the A16 exists and not a whole lot has changed between these two phones. I mean, the only real differences are the design of the camera bump. This has a slightly newer GPU and optical image stabilization. Apart from that, these phones are very similar. And the problem I have with that is I paid £170 for the A17, but I only paid £90 for the A16. So the A17 was almost double the price, but it's definitely not double as good. So yeah, that's what my opinion is. I think this is a good phone, nothing really wrong with it, but it's the fact that last generation's phone is almost as good. And if you really want to spend £170 on a phone, I'd probably get the higher version of last year's model, something like the A36, A46, depending on how much you can find those phones for. So that's going to wrap up this video. If you have enjoyed, drop us a like and consider subscribing. We've just hit 12,000 subscribers, which is absolutely amazing. And also check out my older videos. So I did do a review on the A16. I've also just dropped a review on the A07, which is the younger brother of the A17. So if you're interested in that, look on my channel, I guess. Yeah, I'll see everyone in my next video.